the Soul's Conquest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new chapter in bringing you stories from around the world of people who are trying to create change in one way or another, one small step at a time. I feel like that's the best that we can do, and we should all be doing that consistently or as consistently as we possibly can. And here we have Mouse Wilson coming in live, sharing his story with you. And I hope that you can resonate with it, relate with it, and take away a lot of good stuff away from it. Like, I had a beautiful conversation with Mouse a couple of times, I believe, and it was so amazing. I was called to ask him, and you're actually the first person to be a part of this series. So yay, and thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you, Madhurima. And I can I say that I am both well and also struggling with depression and my mental health.
Thank you for being
And yeah, I mean it's absolutely possible to be doing both.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming in here and sharing your story when you're kind of trying to find a balance between the both of them. Not to go into my coaching mode, which is like itching to go like, what's happening? Tell me, I want to help you. We are here to share your story, and hopefully it inspires other people going through the same stuff that you're going through or you have gone through in the past to kind
Mhm.
of conquer and move ahead. So before we dive into that, for those of the people listening in the audience who are seeing you and listening to you for the very first time, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hmm. I guess the most relevant parts are I am men's health and life coach. And I coach from a perspective of lived experience and gentle empowerment. It is not my style to be abrasive, and it is my intention, or uh, to piggyback on what you said earlier, that I am the change that I want to see in the world.
Mm.
And it is my goal, my aspiration that through my lived experience and example, I can help specifically other men embrace their radical self expression and be the type of man that they want to be, and that they get to decide what masculinity and being a man means to them.
I like that a lot. So you mentioned that you're not rough and abrasive and you're much more of a gentle person when you are working with someone. Did you go through a part in your life where you were rough and abrasive, where you felt that, you went through it, you experienced through it, and then you were like, you know what? This is not me. Like, did you have that moment of transition?
Oh yes, that it was my early childhood conditioning that I am fourth generation military.
Mm.
So I mean, I got it from my father. When I got to boot camp when I was 18, it was no big deal to me. Like I was used to that horrible treatment.
Mm.
So now it is an intentional decision that I am doing my best Mr. Rogers impersonation.
So, how did that transition feel for you? I mean, if you don't mind answering that question, like, was it difficult? What were some of the things that came up for you when you were transitioning that? And I'll ask you a question after this because I don't want to kind of bundle up a number of questions because I'm super excited. But yeah, what did you feel when you were transitioning, and was it difficult for you?
I hit my rock bottom first.
Mm.
In 2018, I had a suicide attempt, and which was not necessarily new for me. I have struggled with suicidal thoughts and severe drug-resistant depression since I was 11, so since 1987. This time, though, I spent 36 hours in the ICU and then 8 days in the Wounded Warrior unit at my local VA hospital. And it was that experience where I realized if being hard on myself worked, I would already have succeeded by now.
Mm.
And beating myself up, but yeah, it wasn't effective. And now that I have chosen to treat myself with kindness and to approach everything from a position of kindness and love, that I have been able to enjoy life now. That even with the pandemic, I am very fond of saying that I have gotten more living done in
Mm.
now the last 4 years. Well, actually, it'll be the 4 year anniversary will be next month. Yeah, I've gotten more living done now in the last 4 years than I did in my first 42.
Mm. What triggered, like, was this incident the triggering event that made you go, oh, this kind of lifestyle is not working for me, being hard on myself is not working for me? Or did you have like thoughts prior to this, like those um kind of, I like to call it the dribbling thoughts, right? Like, so it dribbles like water, like, slowly, slowly you have this in your consciousness, somewhere in your awareness, but you kind of are so used to pushing it away that you don't necessarily listen to it. So, did you have these thoughts before this particular event, or was this event the trigger that made you go, have that realization in a like full blown kind of a way?
It was both. That um, I have, well, starting in 2010, I was crippled flat out. I had debilitating nerve pain that took several years to diagnose. And even I was told that it was psychosomatic by two different doctors. So it was during that period that um, I was still like, I was a quote, nice guy. And I did my best to be pleasant to be around, especially because I was in pain. And it was it was always easier, well, pardon me, being conditioned and raised as a people pleaser to tip around on the eggshells of my parents who struggled with alcohol substance use. So I was used to being like nice and polite to other people, literally to avoid a punishment or a negative reaction. And in 2018, that was the like the pivotal moment to actually start showing that same kindness to myself.
Mm. Yeah. And what did that feel like, So like at one, like in one aspect of your life, you're being this people pleaser and being extremely kind to others, but you're being harsh and hard on your own self. So what did that
Hmm.
kind of struggle feel like? What did it feel like for you?
Oh, it
Like,
was awful.
yeah.
Yeah, that it felt like oftentimes it felt hypocritical,
Mm.
and there was questions of, and it was something that I was in therapy. And my therapist and I would talk about it, and she would call me on it. Like, why can I be so like forgiving and magnanimous and supportive of other people and what they're going through, and then deny myself that same level of care and affection?
Mm.
And it ultimately resolved or was about not feeling like I was worth it,
Mm.
and that like punishing myself for perceived weaknesses or not being manly enough.
Mm. What did you feel like when when you had these kind of thoughts? Like, why did you feel like you were not worthy enough to forgive yourself? If it's not like, if you want to go there, if you don't, it's completely all right.
Oh no, I am happy to go there again. I mean, this is part of like the living example. All right, so this is going to be one of those if you know, you know
Mm.
explanations, and it may not make a whole lot of sense. So, as long as I was punishing myself, and as long as I was beating myself up, and as long as I was feeling guilty for things that I didn't do or things of that nature, that was my ego putting some kind of control over my life and my situation. So that while I was, mentally like flogging myself, it was still making me feel better
Mm.
because I didn't feel as powerless because, oh well, if I'm blaming myself for it, if I'm beating myself up for it, then that means that, retroactively, oh, there's something I could have done, and that brings a sense of control.
Mm.
And it wasn't that. Well, yes, I had to address my feelings of worth, and also, um, it was a big forgiveness for, or towards myself, on things that had happened to me that were completely out of my control,
Mm.
and forgiving myself for allowing those things to happen.
Mm.
I had a very traumatic childhood. Uh, like, I went through a lot of things, and like, we definitely want to give people a warning before I go into it.
Yeah.
And I'm wide open. I'm happy to talk about it. That I feel the more we talk about these things, the more we drag them out of the dark and bring them into the
Mm.
light,
I love that.
the
Yeah.
less yeah, the less power they have over us.
Mm.
And now I feel like I'm rambling away from the original point of the
No,
question.
no, no, you're not. I loved what you said because I feel like there needs to be a healthy level of awareness around all these things. The reason why I'm doing this, and I've been doing like different versions of this on my podcast as well, is that a lot of times, no matter what kind of journey we are starting, we end up feeling alone. Like we start off with a huge level of motivation, right? Like we are here, like, yes, let's do this. I'm so excited. And then the first obstacle we face, we just go down because
Mhm.
we feel alone. We feel like no one in the entire world understands us. But having people like you share your stories allows allows there to be a level of awareness, allows people to feel like, hey, I'm not alone. People have gone through this, they have overcome this. Not, more like an inspiration, not like a, oh, he got over it, maybe he didn't feel it like I did. Not like that, but more like, you are an inspiration, a source for people to reach out to other people, to ask for help, to basically talk about the situation and see what can be done. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your story here.
Thank you. I have found that pain is our great unifier.
Mm,
Um, Everyone has been through something.
yeah, it's the reality. It's the harsh, bitter pill kind of a thing. Like we all feel like this kind of pain has not been felt by anyone else, and it's not like I'm blaming you for feeling that. It's like we have all felt that. So like you said, pain is a great unifier. I love that. um so tell me more about this. Like you mentioned that, like, was this journey, okay, let me rephrase that. The journey that you went through, how did that trigger you into talking about self expression and literally allowing yourself to embrace your own reality as a person, more specifically, in the masculine area?
Um, I
I'm known to ask the hard hitting questions, so I mean, I'll apologize right from the beginning.
no, no, this is all gratitude.
Yeah.
Um, 6 weeks after the hospital, I went to my first regional burn, which is like a much smaller version of Burning Man.
Mm,
And it was my first exposure to the 10 principles. And I showed up, and I was still just so unbelievably low. And that all of I didn't have any confidence, and any self esteem that I had was negative. I just had this horrible opinion of myself. Uh, Chemically and biologically, I was a circus because, like, my providers with the VA were trying to find what medications that would help me with my mood and whatnot.
mm,
And then I show up to this place, and it was the first time I had experienced radical inclusion,
mm,
where I didn't have to be anything. I didn't have to be useful. I didn't have to be like pick an adjective. I would show up for just being there, and I was honored and valued for simply being a human being and being alive in that moment. And it just, yeah, even now, I mean, it broke me in the best possible way. So it was radical inclusion was the beginning, and then one of the other principles is radical self-expression. So while you are there, everyone is encouraged to show up as their truest version of themselves. And that's where like there are all kinds of pictures of costumes and crazy outfits. And yeah, that was part of it. And then uh, it really just blossomed from there.
Yeah.
That was the beginning. Now, I mean, I'm literally wearing a skirt right now because it's friggin' comfortable.
I know. I mean, you have a lot of movement and there's air flowing everywhere. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
what's about?
it initially started that I was because of my nerve damage,
Mm,
which is in my groin,
mm,
that the inseam of my pants would hurt when I would sit,
mm,
and I mean hurt. That this was the pain that ultimately pushed me into the suicide attempt in 2018.
mhm,
So, switching to skirts and sarongs was initially just it was more comfortable,
mm,
and then oh yeah, this is actually comfortable, and I can be both masculine and wear a skirt. I mean, I also usually keep my nails painted. However, I've been slacking.
yeah. Hey, so, you speak a lot about masculinity and understanding your version of it and
Mhm.
embracing that version of it. How does one go about doing that? Right? Like, so there are stereotypes, and um people try to escape stereotypes. So, like, for example, I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. I have heard, and I got this kind of, like, a download, basically, that a lot of times people say girls cry, right? So, like, girls try to act tough, and in doing that, that becomes another stereotype, right? It's
Mhm.
like you are beating a stereotype by becoming a new stereotype. So when it comes to masculinity, how does one go about exploring it and feeling comfortable in that exploration and that embracing of it, right? Because you have to literally stand up and show up as who you are, and it takes a lot of courage. We'll be honest here, right? It takes a lot of courage to show up as your true self. So what are your thoughts around this? Can you dive a little bit deeper?
uh, don't do it alone.
Mm,
Find someone um, like within my coaching. I encourage and previously I was doing weight loss and physical health, and this was for because I lost 120 pounds. I was in very rough shape, and still I'm paying for it, like the damage that was done to my body. So part of one of those exercises was finding someone that has a body style that you appreciate.
mm,
It's not a particular like body image. It's not
mm,
what Hollywood sells or what TV is selling. And as you find someone, specifically speaking with men, that hey, I like the way he looks, and I would like to look like that
mm,
because we're visual creatures. So when you have a vision in mind and you have a goal, like okay, I want to expand on this. I want to shrink that. I want to be able to, and another big thing is I'm big on functionality, that muscles aren't worth squat if you can't actually do anything with them. So, like, what do you want to be able to do with your body? What do you want to be able to experience with it? Which then leads into the masculinity. Like, how do you want to show up? What do you want to wear? What do you want to look like? Do you want to take the time to paint your nails? I started painting mine when the pandemic started because, stop touching your face. And I had chewed on my nails for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So painting them helps me not bite them.
Mm.
And then do you want to be, uh, it's also recognizing there is nothing wrong with how someone chooses to express themselves.
Mm.
Pardon me. That it may be abrasive, it may not be your cup of tea, whatever, but there's nothing wrong with it. That's how they're comfortable. That's where they're at in their life. This is where they're at on their journey. What
Mm.
matters is, are you comfortable in your skin? Are you comfortable with how you're able to show up day in and day out? Do you dread going to bed at night because you don't want another day in the morning?
Mm.
Or, you know, are you satisfied with yourself at the end of every day so that you lay down, you go to sleep, and then you wake up, you're refreshed, you're like, yes, I enjoy being here. I enjoy this skin. I enjoy who I am and how I show up in the world.
Yeah, I love that. Now, going off of self expression, you chose this name, right? You chose the
I
name
did.
Mouse. So tell us that story, because I know that story, but I would like everyone in here to listen to that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Uh, I walked a meditation labyrinth, and it was called the Three Old Men. And the walls were like a foot high. They were canvas. It was a nice little setup. And um, the three old men walked through it first, completely nude. And each one of them rang a gong in the middle and then went north, went east, went west. So I walked through the labyrinth. Uh, I ring the gong and I exit west. And then the old man of strife, which was his name, holds up a staff in front of me. He
Mm.
says, "Do you wish to engage in a struggle with an elder?" Um, okay. Place your hands upon the staff. So I had an umbrella for the sun at the time, so I put it down. I put my hands on the staff, and then he just starts going off. He had this whole spiel, and he starts talking about how the staff was charged and during the totality of the 2016 eclipse. Uh, as a note, this was in October of 2018. And I don't remember everything that he said. I
Mm.
remember the moment though when he stopped, and it was abrupt, hard stop. He said, "What is your name?" And I felt like time slow down,
Mm.
and as if the universe took a pause and held its breath. And I was flooded with all of these images, like the zen of being a dog, the happiness of being right here, right now, and then thinking about a dog, like the difference between a large dog and a small dog, and how large dogs are generally so um, laid back and easygoing versus, like, a murder chihuahua. Uh, and it was like it was the steadfast, loyal zen present here and now. And I thought of Mouse, who is a character from the Dresden Files. He's introduced in book 6.
Mm.
And yeah, ultimately he's a supernatural guard dog.
Mm.
I think he's barked like twice in the series.
Yeah.
And I said it like Mouse, and as soon as I said it, bam! I felt it like in my chest, in my core, like, ooh, I got it right.
Yeah.
And that, for a while, that was just my burn name, and that's how I started introducing myself that way to people. I wore it around for a couple of years because it was both who I thought I was inside and also a reminder of what I was aspiring to
Mm.
be and
Mm.
the type of man that I wanted to be. That I am. Previously, my name was Lester, and I was the fourth one.
Mm,
which just works out that all four Lesters in my family on my father's side, all of us served in the military.
mm.
Like what? And I realized that I was just burying myself under the pressure and expectation of dead men,
Oh,
and that was putting it down, like literally. So I put it down, and August of 2021, my legal name change was official.
nice.
Yeah, so like mom still has some issues with it. Uh, my father passed away in 2006, so uh, I I have no doubt that um, he would be extremely proud of the man that I am intentionally today.
Mm. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my God,
my pleasure. Thank you.
that
I
was
love that story.
yeah. It was emotionally charging, and I love it. What would you suggest for someone who has experienced what you experienced in that one moment when you realize that, oh, I got it right? You know, when you have that huge click go on inside of you, and you feel like, now I know which direction I need to go, right? Like if you're wandering alone in darkness and you have that one spark of light that makes you go, now I know which direction I need to go to. Now I know where I'm headed. Now I know what I am as a person. What would you suggest for someone who's going through that moment? Because when I went through it, I can be honest, I'll be honest, like, it was overwhelming, because it went against every thought I thought that my future would look like, right? Like all of that flew out the window, and yet it was still somehow connected with everything that I have done so far. So it was like, what is happening? Like, that is what happened when I decided to choose coaching to be the way I wanted to help people. But what would your tips, for a lack of better word, would be for someone who's experiencing that moment right now?
Lean into it.
Mm.
That um, it is my experience, and only speaking for myself, that I change when it becomes too uncomfortable to stay the same.
Ooh.
And I have found that to be true for a good many people. However, I'm not going to make the blanket statement that we change. So once you have that moment, if you deny that moment and you try to move away from that knowledge, because once you're awake, like you're not going back to sleep. Once you've
Yeah.
had that epiphany, then it's going to continue to work away at you, and it's going to hurt more, and your daily life is going to be less and less rewarding. And yes, is intentionally creating a life difficult and painful? Absolutely. Am I uh, friends with everyone that I have previously been friends with? No. However, that has nothing to do with me. It's just the way that we grew apart. I've got friends with 30 years that
Hmm.
we're still tight, and like they've made the adjustments to my new name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the more you resist what is in your, pardon me, the more I resist what is in my heart, the more it hurts.
Hmm.
So for anyone else that is having that moment, and like you have that single beautiful moment or second of clarity, lean into it, chase it, not so much chase it, but move towards it, that allow yourself to receive it, and take a break, relax all of your fear, and just sit for a minute and visualize what your ideal life looks like and how you want to show up in the world.
Hmm. I
What
love
kind of man, yeah, what kind of man, what kind of person, what kind of non binary individual do you want to be?
that. Hmm.
And just like be you because no one else can. And so yeah, like I walk around, I introduce myself as Mouse, and oftentimes I'm like, huh? I get I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, so I get Moose a lot. Like, no, Mouse. Uh,
Ooh.
yeah, but yeah. So I walk around. Um, yeah, I am me. I'm not trying to be anyone else. I don't want anyone else to try to be me. I'm here to help, not even help. I'm here to hold the space
Mm.
and support other men for them to have the freedom and sense of safety to embrace who they truly are.
Nice.
How they, because there is no right or wrong.
Mm.
It's what's effective and ineffective for you, what feels good for you inside.
Yeah. I love that. Now, why did you choose coaching though? Like, why coaching as your medium to kind of hold space for the people that you want to help?
I started out as a certified peer support specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and my focus was on mental health issues. And then I picked up additional training as a substance use recovery coach. And that's very near and dear. That my biological parents struggled with it, with alcohol use when I was a child. Like, I have memories of younger than 6 of them drunk and fighting. Uh, my step parents, once they split up and remarried, also struggled with alcohol. My father's side of the family struggled with alcohol. I had a bad breakup, or pardon me, I took a breakup poorly when I was 25. I crawled into a pitcher of beer for 10 years.
Hmm.
Like, I was struggling, and then I watched my father, after 13 years of sobriety, um, he had some legitimate pain issues, had an industrial accident, ended up with like 18 surgeries on his hands and wrists in a 2.5 year period, and got hooked on pills. And
Hmm.
this is the early 2000s, when they were just throwing them at people. And when I got hurt in 2009, I mean, I was getting painkillers by the bucket. Like, it was no joke. So, but watching dad go through that, and then his ultimate very early death at let's see, I was almost 30, so he was only 54. And no, he was 50. Yeah. Yeah, so he passed away from uh, opiate related causes when he was 50. So I was helping other people with substance use issues and bringing it back around to self love and kindness, and then stepped into the coaching as a way to be more broad and to reach more people with it. So I feel like I have the experience with alcohol, with opiates. I used cannabis for 4 years exclusively from 2017 through 2021 because I could not be trusted around opiates. And then took myself off cannabis because it was no longer serving me. I realized that I was just trying to get numb.
Hmm.
And yeah, so now this is me in a position to help other people, specifically other men, with their growth and what they're dealing with. And again, to hold the space in the container so they can look at why they're doing what they're doing and what they are trying to avoid.
Hmm.
It's like, I have one client right now that this is how we will first we begin our sessions with celebrations for the week, because always start like, what have you done? It's like, yes, let's celebrate this, and then what don't you want to talk about? And it's that first thought, like, bam, with the first thing you think of that you don't want to talk about, that's what we're going to talk about, because that is what's most present.
Hmm.
That's the thing that's scariest. So
Yeah.
again, I feel like I was rambling away from the original point of the question.
No,
Thank you.
no, no, no. It was beautiful. If you don't mind answering this, like, what brought over that awareness that, oh, cannabis is not working for me. Like, I'm looking to get numb, right? Like,
Mhm.
what was the trigger that brought that awareness into your mind? Because I feel like a lot of people go through this without being aware of it. So,
Hmm.
like, what would your suggestion be, um, to kind of question yourself when you're going through that? Like, what is this? How is this serving me? How is this particular drug serving me? If you don't mind answering that.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I like the phrasing of how is this particular drug serving me? Because that question can be applied to everything, including
Mhm.
food.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we're intaking, and also it can be applied to social media. Like, are you just sitting there doom scrolling? Are you being intentional about it? In my case, my mother-in-law gave me a coffee cup,
Mm,
and then uh, our housemate was moving out, and I gave them the coffee cup. I forgot about it.
mm,
Like, I had no recollection. I spent 3 days in a near panic searching for this cup after they had moved out, and I texted them about it, and they said, "Yeah, I've got it. You gave it to me. Remember? There was a like big deal about it." So um, that was my big like whoa, and it's
mm,
like, okay, well, if I have forgotten this, if I dropped a ball this big, what else have I dropped? What else has fallen along the wayside? And again, back to the visualization of, okay, what do I want my life to look like on a daily basis? Do
mm,
I literally have the time to sit here and be incapacitated for 3, 4 hours at a time? Or are there other things that are more important to me that I want to do?
mm. Yeah, that's insightful. I want to ask you this. So, like you mentioned that you went from peer support to, working with substance abuse, and like through these pivots, are you still working in these areas, or have you changed the kind of niche you're working towards right now at this particular point in your journey?
I have a virtual tranquility base, which
Mm,
is my volunteer time,
mm,
and I provide peer support through that for
mm,
anyone that is having a difficult experience and just needs someone to listen. And uh, we are very big that we do not fix, advise, or solve.
mm,
We listen, and that's it. And that is an immense gift. And again, it's one of those, if you know, you know, like, just to have someone listen to you and not try to give you advice or fix you, just and not take sides or other than like your side, just to be there.
yeah.
Yeah. And I am working on my structure for guided psychedelic journeys,
Mm,
and that is something, and this could be an entire another hour conversation, that in conjunction with dedicated therapy, specifically EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, and psychedelics, I've have treated a lot of my PTSD and trauma.
mm,
And I credit that with a lot of the growth and how I was able to grow through the pain to get to where I am now. And yeah, it's fascinating. There's the options for macrodosing, guided therapy. Yeah, this is I'm feeling myself get animated about it. I'm very passionate about it because of the uh, potential healing in
mm,
these particular medicines, which also is not to say that they are safe. But
mm,
yo, be careful. It is my firm opinion that there's no such thing as a bad trip.
mm.
However, they can be uncomfortable experiences that you may not have the tools to process.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask you this, right? Because for me in particular, I've always had this narrative that drugs bad, psychedelics bad, right? Like, it was literally a couple of years ago that I came to the realization that there is more than one form of weed. Like, like you use cannabis, CBD, and all that for anxiety, for relieving stress and all that. But I was not aware of it. Like, there was a thought in my mind that still went bad. This is bad. Like, even if you have anxiety, don't go into that because it's bad. But
Hmm.
I had to shift that narrative. So I wanted to ask you, for people out there who are still shifting the narrative, just like I still am, what would your thoughts be to, around psychedelics being used for trauma the way that you are doing right now? What could help shift that narrative that psychedelics bad?
Hmm. Um, well, one, talk to someone who's experienced.
Mm,
Having that one-on-one connection is invaluable. I could provide you a list of resources, documentaries, things that to watch, to learn about,
mm,
and yeah, it's really the um, searching within yourself that we think we know a lot
mm,
because we've got the internet, we have all this knowledge on our fingertips, and even like a couple of days ago I learned that psychoactive substances have been used by humanity for more than 100,000 years. And yeah, and
yeah.
I'm still like there. I learn more about it every single day.
Mm,
Uh, let's see. That really choose to educate yourself,
mm,
and it's the biggest difference in say using MDMA, which commonly known as ecstasy or Molly. So using that in a party setting or as a club drug, and then using that in a licensed clinical therapist, right?
mm,
It is set and setting.
mm,
It's the intention behind it. It is what are you trying to achieve? Is
mm,
this like, am I going to have a microdose of mushrooms so I can go out and dance, or am I going to sit, reflect, be meditative?
mm.
Is there anything wrong with either of those? No. It's what you want to do, and back to your individual choice in the life you want to live and how you want to show up every day.
I love that. Because it brings us back to the question of how is this drug serving me? How is, like, what's the intention behind it? I love that. I want to ask you this. In the beginning of your journey as a coach, did you face any obstacles? And if you faced them, what were some of the solutions that you came up with to kind of overcome it, right? Because to be honest, I want to go on a long-winded talk around psychedelics and all that stuff, because I feel like there needs to be a lot of awareness around this, like, rather than self-medicating, reach out to
Mhm.
someone and talk about it. But I am not that aware and educated to speak about this, and we can have another beautiful conversation around that, because I know it can go down a long-winded path. So I want to wrap this up and ask you, what were some of the things that you experienced, in terms of, like, you would title as obstacles in the beginning of your journey, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest obstacle as far as my coaching and being able to provide support has been and is ongoing is imposter syndrome.
Ooh.
Doubting myself and oh, who am I to advise or guide or lead? And then I think about it and it's like, oh wait, who am I? Well, I'm the guy that's been there.
Yeah.
I've been there and I know a way out. And I'm very clear about that, that I know a way out and not necessarily your way out, that I know what worked for me. And I am uniquely positioned and skilled that I can hold the space for you to feel safe while discovering your way out. Because
Mm,
what worked for me may not work for you. However, everyone can use that container of safety.
mm. I hear you.
If nothing else, just to like feel like you can take a minute and breathe and
Mm,
honestly look around and like, okay, how am I going to get myself out of this? How do I want to live? What kind of life do I want?
mm,
Do I want to constantly manage and mitigate my anxiety on a daily basis? Or do I want to take a deep breath and get to the root of the
mm,
anxiety?
mm.
And yeah.
Yeah. And I want to ask you this. So, is this something that still happens for you, right? Like, do you still feel that imposter syndrome kind of creeping in during this part of your journey as a coach?
Oh yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
yeah.
Like it's still something that um, I have done a lot of healing over the years, and it's also something I feel that I'm going to continue to do. That this is my lifelong path. I don't think I'm ever going to achieve a point where I look around and say, okay, I'm healed.
Oh, I
No.
love that, right? Like, so, like, I had this huge misconception, right? Like, I won't talk for other people and I won't speak for other people, but I had this huge misconception that if I heal once, that will be more than enough. Boy, was I wrong. Like, I was like, oh shit, like, there are so many new things that's coming up that's linked to my old stuff. Like, what is happening? So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I love
Like
that.
what? I have to deal with this again? No,
Yeah.
I already fixed this once. Thank you.
It's a lifelong journey, guys. If you're starting your healing journey right now, I'm warning you right off the bat. It's a lifelong journey, but it's a very beneficial one as well because you get to live a bit more freely and breathe a bit more freely, I believe. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters, right?
Hmm.
Um,
All we have is time and our choices with what to do with that time.
ooh, yeah.
So it's either, it's living a life of ignoring the root causes and issues, or it's living a
Mhm.
life of taking that deep breath, being brave for
Mm,
just a minute, and choosing to address the root causes.
mm. I love that. I love that so much. Oh God. I want to ask you, what are some of your favorite spiritual practices? Something that you do on a daily basis, both while you're coaching people, but also in your personal life.
I listen to I Am Loving Awareness by Ram Dass every day.
Mm, nice.
And yes, I feel a particular kinship with him, especially after his stroke. That with my chronic health issues and what, because I'm not even technically I am disabled,
Mm,
and it's how can I reconcile that, like looking at how he was able to turn his stroke into a teaching tool to help support other people through their journey. Like, okay, I'm looking
mm,
at my chronic pain issues, my degenerating discs, like, all right, how can I use this to be of service to help other people along their journey?
nice. I love that. You know, I swear this happens every single time. Every time I'm interviewing someone, there's one phrase that I repeat all the time. And I at the end of it, I always say that, this is the part of a drinking game when if you hear this a couple of times or more than a couple of times, drink a sip of water. Because you have like, if you have heard the podcast properly or if you have heard the interview properly, by the end of it, you'll have to pee. Like you will have to be because I repeat a sentence so many times. Um, and I love that it's turning out to be this interview's um, drinking word. I want to ask you this, and this is a celebratory question. What according to you makes you a conqueror? I want you to celebrate yourself in this moment and go crazy.
I am not a fan of Conqueror.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, being a veteran that, and also I had a very violent youth, and even in my 20s, I earned a black belt in Shotokan karate. Um, I am most proud of how I have been able to achieve peace with what I have been through and where I am now and the life I am building for myself.
I love that. I love that a lot. I ask this a lot. Like, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and that is what has been your soul's conquest in the past, and what is your current soul's conquest? And when I say soul's conquest, it's kind of like if you're playing a video game, you have these side quests that help you get the potions and the amazing things that will help you in the main quest. So I think of Soul's Conquest as the side quest that help you on the journey called life. So what has been one of your previous Soul's Conquest, and what is your current Soul's Conquest?
Learning how to, or well, the big one is being kind to myself.
Mm,
So the smaller ones are, how does that physically manifest?
mm,
So it's been learning to accept where my body is at and
mm,
taking a nap when I need to, or
mm.
resting when I need to, or
Yeah.
like, because I'm used to being the guy that people would call when they needed help moving and like, oh, I need to move this couch. And like now, like, no, I can't. My back can't take it. Even with a
Mm.
brace and all that jazz, like that, that's not me anymore. So learning to accept that, like, bam, that's a big one right there. Like,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's how does the kindness show up on a daily basis?
Mm. I love that. What's the one last thing that you would like to leave the listeners of this interview with?
Hmm. Um, Epiphanies and insights are fantastic and
Mm.
they are absolutely essential. However, without an action plan on how to implement them afterwards, they're effectively a fart in the wind. It's like, oh, and then it's gone. And like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yes, that's make um make a plan.
Mm.
Like, and that's something else that we could absolutely spend a lot of time with on plan making.
Yeah, I love that. Oh God, I'm ending this with I love that once again. Please be extremely hydrated by the end of this interview if you're listening to this. But thank you so much. This was wonderful, Mouse. It was so amazing for you to be present here in this space, share your stories. And this was an seriously, it was an emotionally charged interview. And that's such a blessing. Like, I'm extremely grateful for you to be honest and be here and share your story with us. I'm sure a lot of people will take a lot of different things away from it. If not the entire interview, they will take different aspects of it, and they'll hopefully lead a better life with it. And hopefully it's not a fart in a wind, right? Like, it's not gone, it's something that sticks with them.
Mhm.
And the words that you said here are definitely something to stick by. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm extremely grateful for you to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I very much appreciate you